Some More Outdoor, Episode 7.
Welcome to Some More Outdoor, where we speak with authors, entrepreneurs, and business owners about how the outdoors has affected their life and their projects. This show is to remind you of the healing properties of the outdoors. So, are you ready to learn what the nature effect can do for your life? Well, here's your host, Brett Trout.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Some More Outdoor podcast. I'm your host and personal outdoor advocate, Brett Trout, and this is the podcast dedicated to reminding you to get out and experience the nature effect. My goal is to help you reestablish your connection with nature so you can live with childlike wonder again. So I'm so excited to be here today. Today is the first topic-based episode. And if you haven't listened to any of my other shows yet, you'll know that I do a lot of interviews with people. But on Fridays, I want to spend this episode and the episodes going forward talking about a specific topic that has an impact, or at least it's had an impact in my life. And I believe that it will have an impact in your life. So what's the topic? The topic is how to deal with stress at work and actually get a good night's sleep. You know, how would that sound? How would it be for you just to be able to go to bed at night and not be thinking about all the different things that you have to do the next day, not be thinking about what's going on at work and all that stress that's overwhelming your life? So my goal for today's show is to help you in managing stress in the workplace, help you relax your mind when you're feeling overwhelmed, and to help you if you can't sleep at night. So I want to go back and start, and which I'll be doing with every topic-based show, is relating this topic to me and how stress and not being able to sleep at night had an impact on my life. And it all started back in between 93 and 2001. And what had happened was I'd returned from college and went to help my dad open up a pawn shop in Santa Barbara, California. And in that environment, someone who's was very shy and very timid, I wasn't really prepared for what dealing with people, dealing with the emotional side of people was going to do to me and how that would affect the emotional side of me. And so what I had discovered when I got back from college is my buddies and I would go hiking up in the mountains. We would start it off just doing it on Sundays, and eventually we started camping overnight and going on backpacking trips. But what I had found was on that Sunday when I was out there, I was away from all the noise, all the distractions, and all the people that were being, I guess you would say, kind of needy and needing someone to talk to. They were sapping my energy, and by the end of the week, I was completely drained, and I had so much emotional stress. So when I was out there on Sunday, I would come back, and I would just be so excited and so alive and just feeling so great about what I could do and what I could accomplish throughout the week and how I could help people. And that was one of the best things for me that I had. And so I learned how to deal with my own stress in the workplace and how by becoming more relaxed and more at peace with myself, how that had an impact with the environment that I was in. Now, later on, after working in the pawn shop for 9 years, I had gotten a job with a cell phone company, an up-and-coming cell phone company, and became a manager for a location in Bakersfield, California. Now, I worked with this company for over 12 years, but during that time, during the initial time of me getting going and learning about the business and doing all this stuff, I didn't spend, for the first 4 years, I didn't spend that time going outdoors. And I started to gain weight. I started to experience more stress. And I started having a tough time really getting to sleep at night. You know, I'd come home from work, sit in front of the TV and watch TV, all the shows that I recorded till 12 o'clock at night. And then next thing I know, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I've got to get up and prepare for this stressful day at work. And so after about 4 years, I couldn't take it anymore. And I went outside, and I didn't realize that I was so close to all these beautiful national parks and beautiful mountain ranges that I could go and sit and hike and just do all these different things outdoors to really start getting that back into my life and start unplugging from the technological world that I was being immersed in and that technology that I was selling on other people. And so it was really tough for me during that time. And eventually later on, the same thing happened. I moved up to Fresno and things just started going crazy again. But one thing that I knew was that by going outdoors, it was going to help me relax. It was going to help to stay more relaxed and more at peace and be able to deal with the environment that I was in. And so that's where I'm at today, is that I love the outdoors and I love what it can do for you and how it can have an impact in your life and actually change your life. So I want to talk a little bit about what areas that you're struggling with. Now, if you're like me, which I'm sure you are, you're driving to work this morning and you probably got a half an hour longer commute to work and you're just overwhelmed. That feeling is just, oh my gosh, another day. But it's Friday and you can't wait for the weekend to be here. Well, what Richard Swenson says in his book, Margin, which I love that book, by the way, gives me a lot of ideas and a lot of insights that I can bring to you guys who are traveling to work this morning. And your lives are just crazy. And he says that overloading in our lives occurs when the requirements upon us exceed that which we are capable to bear. And most of us have so much going on that we're having a tough time dealing with it. And we all have these different tolerances that we can put up with, and some of us can bear actually more than others. And hopefully that you can bear more than a lot of us can bear. But if you can't, he goes on to say about these syndromes that we have from being overloaded. And some of the syndromes that he talks about are activity overload, change overload, meaning all the different changes that are going on in our lives at work or at home, our choice overload. Choice. We have so many different choices in our life. What we've committed to, there's a commitment overload that we've committed to so much that it takes up so much of our time. And we also have, with all this advertising and all these different things that we can do or that we would like to do, we have what's called decision overload. Another one that he shares with us is expectation overload, which what we are expected from our family, what we're expected from our community, what we are expected from work. Fatigue overload. How tired are you? How many energy drinks do you drink in a day? We also have hurry overload because we're constantly going, we're constantly fighting, we're constantly just in this flight. I guess you would say this flight mode. We also have information overload. Man, who among you has a cell phone? You're probably listening to this through your cell phone. Well, there's so much information online these days, and there's so much coming through us, and we've signed up for so many different emails and to be updated and all these different things. We've got media overload, the social media overload, YouTube, television with thousands of channels that we can do. The noise in our life is overloading our sense of silence, our sense of peace. We have people overload. People overload just constantly demanding stuff from our time. Like I said, technology. Technology has, and I've seen it firsthand being in the cell phone industry, that technology has advanced so rapidly that there's so many things coming out. Oh, I want this, I want this, I want this, and all the different things that are supposed to make our lives easier, but it's actually just created more stress in our lives from that. And one that the last two that you can definitely relate with is traffic overload. Man, in the last 12 years, I've seen constant work on our freeway system, on our highways, and how many people are actually out commuting and driving to work, and how many accidents there are, and getting caught up in a traffic jam. And now we're going to be late to work if we haven't given ourselves a little bit buffer room to go. And then work overload. Some of you are working 40 plus hours a week. I was there. I know it. Sometimes, depending on if you're in a retail environment, which I was, sometimes you may have to do split shifts. Sometimes you have to cover for employees that call in sick. So work overload is another one. And so what I want to say is that you have to really choose carefully where you invest your time and your energy. Because in all these areas that I've spoke about, you've invested your time and energy in all of these, and you may have to eliminate some of these or at least reduce the impact that these overload syndromes, as he calls them, have on your life. Because if not, this overload will cause you stress, And I know you're feeling it because we all experience stress differently and we deal with it differently. Some of us, we may eat a bunch, which causes obesity. Maybe we smoke or maybe we drink, and that can have an impact on our health, definitely. We're experiencing high blood pressure. Maybe some of you have gotten to a point where you have to take medication because you have high blood pressure or because of different ailments. Do you ever find yourself lashing out at people, whether it's your family, your coworkers, or just people on the road that upset you? Maybe you come home from work and you watch TV for 2 or 3 hours. Maybe the average time is 5 hours and you're watching that or more. Or you jump online to watch YouTube videos because you want to learn something or you just want to get a good laugh. And some of you, maybe you just like to go out and spend money and shop because that helps you deal with life. Another thing that stress has an impact on is our sleep. We as a society, we don't sleep well anymore. We sleep so much less than we used to. And I came across this article in the Huffington Post, and it's titled 8 Scary Side Effects of Sleep Deprivation. I'll have a link to this article in the show notes, but I wanted to share with you what it talks about today. And I'm not going to go into each detail or into detail with each of these, but it says that people who sleep less have an increased stroke risk, that it can lead to obesity. It ups our diabetes risks. It fuels memory loss. It also can damage bones. It can increase cancer risk. It can hurt your heart. And one thing that I really found very interesting is it says that it can kill you. So the lack of sleep can kill you. And they cite this in the journal sleep.org's website. And what it says is there was a study that was done over a 14-year period of men who slept less, well, men and women, but of men who slept less than 6 hours. And what they found was pretty amazing to me. They found the mortality rate was 21% higher than those who slept more than 6 hours. For women, it was only 5%. And there's more to this study, but you get the point, and you can go to the website and check out the link to this article as well. And stress can also cause insomnia, the sleep deprivation that we talk about. Stress at work can have a huge impact on how well you sleep. So according to another article in the Huffington Post that I came across, it says most of us have had the experience of lying in bed late at night, unable to sleep as stress loops, they call it, invade our thoughts. And it goes on to say, even if you don't have a lot of events in your life that others would consider stressful, the degree to which you believe that events are stressful leads to this insomnia. In another article on the sleepfoundation.org website, they say that stress causes insomnia by making it difficult to fall asleep and stay asleep, and by affecting the quality of sleep. So stress causes hyperarousal, which can upset the balance between sleep and wakefulness. So that brings me to this point. What can you do to deal with stress at work and actually get a good night's sleep? Well, there's many things that you can do. But it starts with changing your environment and how you react to it. And the first step is to recognize the stressors in your life. Of those syndromes that I talked about earlier, what are those stressors in your life that you need to recognize? And then you need to start figuring out how you can eliminate it, and you can control certain aspects of it, if not most of them. So you need to be able to eliminate what you can control. And then my favorite is you need to break away from your electrical paradise. That's what I call your home. Most of us spend so much time at home with all our electronics. We've got our computers, we've got our TVs, we might have our tablets, and we definitely have our cell phones. And most of you sleep with your cell phones right next to your bed. Now, I want to get into that because a while ago, my wife read something about that. And so we started putting our cell phones away. I used to have my cell phone next to my bed because I needed to be available for the alarm company. And I had to be able to get up and go down to the store if someone had broken into the store. Well, she came across and said, hey, let's move. I found this thing, and I don't remember where she found this from, but she says, let's move our phones away from the bed. And so I wanted to do some research for this show today, and I found this on health.com. It says one suggestion was about moving your phone out of the bedroom. And the reason why is because it emits wavelengths similar to daylight, which makes our bodies think it's daytime. Now, there's definitely a lot more to dive into on that, but I don't want to go into that in today's show because I've got a lot more to talk about here and to share. But you can find anything, just go Google and type in, cell phones and sleep or something like that. I also found a 2008 study that was funded by the major mobile phone makers themselves, and they showed that people exposed to mobile radiation took longer to fall asleep and spent less time in deep sleep. This was also on an article in the Huffington Post. So what do I believe that you can do? Well, before I go into what I believe, I want to share with you something. Another book that I love is called The Nature Principle. It's by author Richard Louv, and he's done many studies and written many books, but two of the one that I found most fascinating were The Nature Principle and Last Child in the Woods. But in The Nature Principle, he cites a study of 260 people in Japan and found that those who gazed on forest scenery for 20 minutes, the average concentration of salivary cortisol, which is a stress hormone, was 13.4% lower than those in urban settings. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. Just gazing on forest scenery for 20 minutes can reduce this stress hormone. He also references another study, and I probably won't get this name right because it's from Japan. Liqing, it's Qing, Liqing. He's a senior assistant professor of forest medicine, which I find fascinating that there's actually a term in Japan called forest medicine at the Nippon Medical School in Tokyo. And he found that green exercise, or the physical movement in a natural setting, can increase the activity of natural killer cells, and he calls it NK for short. He says that when NK activity increases, immune strength is enhanced, which boosts resistance against stress. Now, there's probably more that has to be done to these studies, because in the book it talks about how there was no control groups and stuff like that. But I believe this to be true just in my own life, because I know that getting outdoors and obviously eating food that's grown outdoors and not man-made has definitely helped boost my resistance against stress, but it's also boosted my resistance against getting sick. My wife and we haven't been sick in like 4 years. I believe that you need to spend more time outside, away from the city if you can. I mean, that's the most important thing. Getting away from the smog, getting away from all the noise, doing whatever you can to get outside the city. And you can either go for a walk or a hike. Something small. It doesn't have to be something drastic. You don't have to go run a marathon or anything like that, although some of you may have a goal to do that. I personally don't. I love hiking. I love going out and just walking around and smelling in the sense of nature and just even walking around the neighborhood and just visually seeing all the different places, or I guess you would say the different yards that people have and what everyone does to create their own little natural haven in their area. Another idea may be just to go and relax in a park or maybe sit next to a river and listen to the sounds of the river or go to a lake or a big pond or something like that and just hang out and relax. These times of leisure can drastically reduce your stress levels. It can help you just be at peace. And how does it do this? Well, it allows us to emotionally unplug from those things that overwhelm us. Our stress at work, the stress in our life, all the noise and distractions. Our minds and our bodies become more relaxed. When we're out hiking or walking, our heart rate increases, allowing more oxygen to get to the brain, which has more benefits I'll cover sometime down the road. But just getting that fresh oxygen and more oxygen to your brain can have a huge impact on how you deal with stress. We're less distracted and the noise is gone. And it allows us to stop and think. It allows us to reflect on our lives. It allows us to hear and get in tune with our bodies. And like I said, we feel more at peace when we're out there. And another thing that I always experience when I'm out there is a sense of accomplishment. Not just accomplishment in life, I guess, but just getting out there and feeling like I accomplished something. And my body just feels restored. My mind feels restored. I feel restored. So I want to challenge you. And I want you to take this challenge if you feel up to it. Most of you have not been outdoors for a long time. And a lot of it has to do with because you struggle with the time that you do have to be able to get out away from everything. You're very limited on time. And you can listen to some ideas that my guests talk about in the shows. And you can listen to them talk about different ways that you can get outdoors and different things that you can do. And their suggestions for those of you that do struggle with the time to spend outdoors. But today, I want to launch a challenge, and I call it the 30-day Get S'more Outdoor Challenge. So what is this challenge? Well, for the next 30 days, I want you to get what I call 5 minutes of sunshine. I just really like that for some reason. I don't know. It came to me from one of my guests who said he'd just start out with 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, cool, 5 minutes of sunshine. This is just a start. And you may not live in an area where it's going to be sunny straight for 30 days. But at least if you get out and start doing something for 5 minutes, maybe in the morning, maybe when you get home from work, maybe even on your lunch break, just to break away from life for a moment, your home life, your work life, but just get out and get 5 minutes of sunshine. And then when you can, work up to what I like to call the weekly green hour. I stole that from the National Wildlife Federation's daily green hour that they have for children, making sure that children are getting out for at least an hour a day. But I know your time is limited, so I've changed it to the weekly green hour. And what is that? Well, it's getting out at least one day a week where you can go spend an hour outside doing something, whether it's relaxing, hiking, like I talked about just a moment ago. For those of you who want to take this challenge a step further and come on live with the show, I want to bring you on board. So if you're interested, you can go ahead and email me. Send an email to Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at s'moreoutdoor.com and put in the headline, Challenge Accepted. And then what I want you to do is go in and just kind of write a little bit about who you are and your story and what you're struggling with. And we'll bring you on the show, have some fun. And, depending on how much you want to talk about yourself, we'll share your story and different things that you struggle with. And then we'll go through the challenge. And then after 30 days, I'll bring you back on and we'll talk about and share your story and how the outdoors has had an impact on your life. That's it for today's episode of S'more Outdoor on how to deal with stress at work and actually get a good night's sleep. So a few things before I go. You can head on over to s'moreoutdoor.com to see a recap of today's show, as well as check out the notes that I've put there. It has all the links with all the studies that I found. And if you've enjoyed this show as much as I did, and it's provided value for you, I would appreciate so much if you would subscribe in iTunes and also leave a rating and a review. That way it helps get this show noticed so that others like you and I can learn about how the nature effect can have an impact in their lives and become inspired by the stories and topics that are on this show. You can also find my social media links over there, and you can sign up for our newsletter to stay updated with exclusive content that I send out. So I hope this show has inspired you to reconnect with nature and start living with childlike wonder again. So thanks for tuning in to today's show that's changing lives around the world. Until next time, I challenge you to do something this week to get s'more outdoor.